Hello, and welcome to the Missouri Botanical Garden. I'm Neshka Pfeiffer, your host and moderator for the 10-part series, Bioculture, Plants and People Interacting, organized by the William L. Brown Center and made possible by a major grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities. This series explores how plants and people interact through the lens of the Missouri Botanical Garden's Biocultural Collection. This collection is a valuable resource for understanding humanity's biocultural heritage and a means of preserving traditional knowledge, documenting livelihoods, and showing the lasting influence of ethnobotany on the diversity of human cultures. The objects in this collection range from plants connected to people's material needs, food, fuel, and shelter, as well as those connected to non-material needs, such as symbol, aesthetics, and spirituality. As you'll hear, our speakers today, with an emphasis on food and art, integrate these diverse aspects of ethnobotany, as they say it, putting the culture back in agriculture. The talk today will last approximately 30 minutes with a 20-minute pre-recorded presentation and time at the end for a live Q&A with the speakers. Throughout the presentation, please ask questions in the Q&A function in the box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to as many of them as possible by the end of the presentation. Today's program will be recorded and posted on the Missouri Botanical Garden's YouTube channel in the coming weeks. We're able to offer ASL interpretation for the deaf and hard of hearing and live captioning, which you can access via the closed caption button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. To turn off or for more options, just click on that closed captioning feature. We respectfully acknowledge that we host this event from the traditional ancestral lands of the Osage Nation, which was historically home to many diverse Native peoples who continue to live and work here. Particularly when speaking about the interactions of plants and people, we want to honor and express gratitude to the indigenous and local people whose wisdom and innovations have shaped and continue to shape the ways in which we engage with the natural world. Today's speakers are introduced by Dr. Jen Salick, Curator Emerita at the William L. Brown Center.
Food sovereignty is the right of peoples to healthy, ecologically sound, and culturally appropriate food from a production system of their choice. Today, we will hear about the Narragansett Food Sovereignty Initiative and how it is enlarged to include indigenous arts, which are part of the Missouri Botanical Garden Biocultural Collections. It is my honor to introduce Dawn and Cassius Spears, founders and directors of the Narragansett Food Sovereignty Initiative. We respectfully acknowledge the Narragansett and Wampanoag people who are the traditional stewards and first harvesters of the lands from which this presentation originates.
So, Askawikwasan, Wanikizug, Natazuis, Katampanisha. Hi, everyone. My name is Dawn Spears, and this is my husband, Cassius Spears, and we're hearing today from Astrowog Farm, which is a farm located in Astroway, Rhode Island. Cassius, you could share a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, so Astrowog means land between two rivers. So we're on a 6-acre farm, 6.5-acre farm here that we practice traditional farming as well as using some of the new and technology of today. So I'm going to start with showing you an image of some of the things that are important to us that we grow here as well. Corn and beans and squash, and oh, there's a little bit of cranberries and some nuts there too. But food tells us so much about who we are. And you know, it's if you ask your grandmother for some of her old recipes and ask her like where they come from, and you know, usually you'll find that it kind of trickles back in time, and it kind of tells you a little bit about, you know, your culture and, you know, where you're from. Tells you a little bit about, you know, what I mean by that is like your geography, where the food grows, what kind of climate was there, how long your growing season is. So again, food tells you a lot if you just start to learn a little bit about the foods that you eat and where they come from. And I wanted to show this slide because it's kind of community based, and it shows a little bit about, you know, people working together. It kind of shows a natural world. I like to talk a little bit about water is life and the importance of water. But also, if you look further back, you know, you see the forest and just the resources. Pre-contact was just amazing, and it must have been awesome to be able to work the lands and harvest all this and be able to teach in a natural kind of setting. You'll see some baskets there, fish baskets, and some of the clothing that they're wearing as well. It's all again from the natural world. So what leads us into this slide, which is I wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that plants or the food that we grow is not always to eat. It can be used as a medicine as well. So this is a picture of Narragansett flint corn. It's the first time that it was planted in a communal setting for about 250 years. Again, we planted it that time.
As far as we know. So.
We planted it as a medicine. And what I mean by that is that we grew it and then we gave away all the corn. And the idea was to dry it and in the spring come back and replant it. And so for the community to kind of grow as a cornfield is growing. But if you look, you can see like just to the energy from people involved in learning and wanting to know more and being in touch. So it's not like we're teaching them, we're more or less reminding them.
And just to chime in here, you know, growing the corn was never not happening. It wasn't something that needed to be reintroduced. We were always growing it, but we were growing it in our own spaces. This was the first time we had an opportunity to grow it as a community on our own land. And so it was for the community, by the community. And then the fact of us having this opportunity to harvest it collectively, to sing our traditional songs, so that camaraderie that comes with that kind of community gathering is something that just doesn't happen as much as we would like it to in modern society. And so that was where we were using it as a medicine, because we needed it within our community at that time because there was a lot of turmoil happening. And so it absolutely worked to do just what we wanted it to do. And you can see that just by the pictures.
And so when I said Narragansett flint corn is a registered corn, and it's been manipulated to grow in our area for thousands of years. So it's very, it's very hardy here. And matter of fact, I was showing that when the soil is so depleted and so poor that the Narragansett flint corn can't grow, then there's some dire need to rebuild that soil, because this corn is amazing on growing in this area. So, you know, when we talk about food sovereignty and food security, food control, sustainable, I should say, a sustainable ecosystem, it's more than just, you know, gathering and foraging and harvesting. It's a way of life for us. It's so complex or intertwined with our daily lives. You know, the stories that we tell, our expression through art. You know, how it bonds us as a community. And then you go back generations like this. So. I wanted to show this to show that, you know, this activity going on here is kind of like a social environment, but at the same time, we're teaching, teaching about the timing of the year, different things that migrate, the tools that we need, and traditional tools and tools of, you know, today. So we try to include all that. Places that we go to harvest certain things. I mean, there's particular places that we do visit annually
And so we make a point of sharing that with our grandchildren as well. He has little spots where he has to go and fish his trout, I will say.
Yeah.
And he has his special ways he has to even fish and sneak up and get them, which is always fun to watch. But then there's also special places we go to harvest. So that one picture here is herring. That's a seasonal thing. And then there's other pictures of us out shellfishing.
And speaking of shellfishing, if you're here where we live, there's a lot of different shellfish, and it's a major part of our diet. And it's all different times of the year that you gather the types of shellfish that you're going after. And there's different techniques on how to gather that. And then there's different ways on how to cook it and prepare it. And all of this is, really important, as far as passing this knowledge on to the next generation. And like Dawn was saying, the secrets behind, harvest them but at the same time, to be conservative in
yes, that's something which we forget sometimes to mention some of these things because it's just inherently part of what we do. But we never over harvest. We always give thanks. We always make sure we say thank you for anything we're taking, and we always work to make sure that whatever we're harvesting is also able to continue to grow. So you have stories about that.
So I can tell you, just looking at the picture of the blue shell crab in the corner here, I can tell you that every crab, or even in the pot, the ones that are cooked, that every crab there is a male, because we do not harvest females. We leave them to reproduce. So that's just something that, our tribe knows, and especially all the young men and women that are out gathering crabs.
Wow.
So, yeah. So another thing we want to talk about is that we look at plants as our sisters and animals like as our brothers. So, and so we treat them as such in the same respect, that we make sure that when we talk about over harvest, that there's enough, clean water, there's food for the animals, for the plants. We try to not to impact their environment. We actually look at them as being here before us, and that they taught us the ways to live here on Mother Earth, just by watching them and studying their habits. So they're very important to us. And in the plant world, it's the same thing. We have every plant can be used for food, medicine, or technology, or a super plant that consists of all three of those. So again, understanding the characteristics of the different animals and plants was very important to our being. So I also want to kind of talk a little bit about timeline, because sometimes, we get caught in a certain time period. When you mention Indians, Native Americans, you kind of think about Thanksgiving, and you start looking at moccasins and breechcloths, and you kind of forget that, we're still here today, and we're still doing things, and we're still practicing our culture. But again, being very resourceful, we used a lot of new technology, different ways to grow and plant, but we also include some of our traditional knowledge and try to use the best of what we're actually growing. So, there's a lot of science behind gardening, and even in the traditional way, how we used to raise our beds to help with germination by hopefully the frost will settle lower than the hills are raised. And plus it warms the soil, more soil exposed, so it warms the soil better for germination. This is an image of the strawberry, which we believe has a spirit of its own. And it's, I want to let Dawn talk a little bit about the artwork, but the strawberry and strawberry plant is so powerful. And every time I see this plant, it just kind of get a warm feeling. It reminds me of my grandmother, and I should say my aunties too, and the different stories that they would tell me. And if I could go to any one of them and they would tell me something new and exciting and kind of mysterious about this plant, and the connectivity of all of it, the way it grows so close to the ground, and it's all connected, and it has different age plants all around it, and it fruits and flowers at the same time, and the fruit itself is shaped like a heart. And so they talk about giving, and they talk about sharing and community, and the importance of all of that. And they talk about the time of year, coming into the spring, and things are rejuvenating, and new life is being born, and it's just so, I don't know, it's so heartfelt, because it's like, it just makes I can feel that connection, and it just and as they're telling me, it makes me feel even closer to them. And then if you talk to the medicine woman of the tribe, she even knows even more depth than that, as far as the power of the plant into the human body, and to the mind and heart, I should say, as well. Which is, again, it's we look at it as a woman plant because of its relationship, right?
Yes, and it was used in ceremony in the past. I don't know that it's used so much anymore, but I had just told this kind of story to my grandson, and it literally was just in the last day. He asked me, why did I draw this picture and draw it with as women, and not where and not include any boys, and because he's like, I like strawberries too. And I said, oh, I know, babe, we all like strawberries. Strawberries are the first berry of the season, so with that being the first berry of the season, we celebrate it with strawberry Thanksgiving. She just had ice cream, so she's a little energized. And I like her being here because that's one of her favorite plants, actually. Cassius took her out from infancy, out as soon as she was able to eat strawberries, and he would take her out into the garden, and he taught her the word, which shortened to Miniash, which is berry in Narragansett, but Wata Miniash is heartberry, and that's the word for strawberry. But the reason why I told my grandson that I made these females was because I looked at the way strawberries are grown, and the way they have their runners that come off, and they have all their offsprings, that it's very much like how a woman has babies and has children. And so I just look at it as a nurturing plant. This painting is called Strawberry Daughters. And I don't know, I feel like I have a very strong connection to strawberries. I gravitate towards strawberries. So this is the first in a series.
So yeah, this we give thanks, and there's 13 moons, and we give thanks to each one of those moons. And strawberry, has its own moon, and it's the and it's also the first berry of the year that we pick and eat and bring the community together, and usually coming through a long winter. It just kind of, again, another thing that we share and celebrate. So to put this in an art form is just again a form of expression, and I hope you can see that by looking at her work, because it's beautiful.
Thank you.
And to give you another example, this is Three Sisters, corn, bean, and squash. And again, this talks a little bit about working together. And the three sisters helping each other in the garden, companion planting. But the squash keeps the soil moist by keeping the leaves spread across the soil. The corn lets the bean wrap around the stalk to help her off the ground. In return, the bean takes nitrogen from the air and give it to the corn in the soil. And maybe that's why the corn is so tall. So again, stories like this that we tell our children, and they start to understand the importance of companion planning and working together. And I should actually show you this, because I was just looking down here, and so this is a Cornhusk Doll that Dawn also made out of the husk of corn, as you can see. And again, expression through art, and not letting anything go to waste, of course, but again, she likes to say, put the culture back into agriculture. So, and again, I can express when we're talking about food sovereignty is that, that security and that control and that sustainability, that's so important, because it's not something that we can give away, or we can say, make a choice if we want it or not. It's basically, we're so intertwined. It's who we are. And I mean by saying that's who we are as a people. And so by taking those resources away from us, you're actually taking that culture and that identity from us. And that's why we fight so hard for it. And why do we do it? Again, we're talking about the generations to come. And somebody took the time, which we know, and taught us and showed us how important it was to carry this on and to create that space. And so we're just passing forward. That's what we're doing here. We're just passing that forward and trying to give what was given to us to the next generation. So that's kind of keeps us going, and it's been great. Then again, going back full circle, food tells you so much about who you are.
I can add to this picture.
Okay.
I can think of, it wasn't that long ago. It was like in the last 2 summers, and we were out fishing on the beach. So I look at this picture and it makes me happy, because this is the world that it should be. Being able to be on a shoreline, fishing to our heart's content. And as I said, we never take more than we need. So, this is life how it's supposed to be. The reality is, when we were on the beach fishing, surf casting off the shoreline, we were told we couldn't take the fish. And I was really, really offended by that. And I wanted to fight. But my husband nicely let this man follow him down the beach and then take the fish away from him and throw it in the water. So I always have to share that, because, I guess you have to pick and choose your battles. But and that day we chose not to battle it and create a scene on the beach. But mind you, I had 6 grandchildren there with me watching their pop, fish. And I was really upset, because I'm like, we could use that fish. We would feed our family. Why would you not let the original people of this land fish it, and keep that fish? But
so let me add to that, because we wear a lot of hats. And one of the hats that I wear is I'm the president of the Rhode Island Association of Conservation Districts. And the reason why I'm there is because policy is really important. And I believe that, indigenous people wasn't at the table when it was developing a lot of this policy. So to be able to sit on these tables and actually start to change policy, so it's not,
he didn't want to make the headlines.
My family taught me, when you have a snake, you have to go at the head of it.
Yes.
And not the tail. All right. If you want to try to accomplish it, the job. So in a sense, I was practicing that and showing our grandchildren that, this gentleman is following the laws that he knows. And until those laws and the policy is changed, it's going to continue being that way. So instead of arguing that with him on the beach that day, we have to put ourselves in these positions to where we can help the next generation be able to do the things that we have done.
And I agree with that. And the reason why I mention it right now is because, yes, we made that and we explained that to them. But like I said, and deep down, I wanted to fight, but I controlled the urge and I supported my husband. And so my way of fighting is to mention it and share it, because the only way we are going to change it is for people to be more aware of that challenge.
That's fabulous. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Dawn and Cassius and Jan. Before we start our Q&A, I want to encourage everyone to please take a moment to fill out our survey, sign up for our next talk, which will be on April 13th by Kate Farley, and she'll be speaking on wild roots, harvesting and using the wild forest medicinal plants of Appalachia, and learn more about the rest of the series that we've been presenting through the Brown Center and the garden. And I want to actually kick off with a really fabulous question that we've gotten to Dawn and Cassius, but of course, Jan, if you've got something to add, please do. Can you please talk about the future of food sovereignty? Do you see it becoming a widespread movement, and what are some of the barriers to food sovereignty?
So yes, very good question. As far as the movement is concerned with food sovereignty, I do think it's very active now. I do feel that COVID, did have an effect on people's thought process of, about food and where's it coming from, how many people are handling my food in the course of a day, all these different things that kind of, said, wow, we're slipping away from something. We have to, get a stronger grip on that. So in a sense, that thought and that movement is actually directed back to us, and I feel because as indigenous, that's something that we've never let get away from us. Like I said, we try to hold on to it daily. So again, that, exposure is the word I'm looking for. And I think that the movement in being exposed to, people that has not stopped doing this or thinking that way is a resource. So in that aspect, it was a positive thing. And the second part of that question, if someone could tell me again, what was the second part of that question?
Of course, yes. Do you see it become a widespread movement, and what are some barriers to food sovereignty?
Okay, so yeah, so barriers. So the answer is yes, I do see it as a widespread movement. But as far as the barriers are concerned, I think I talked a little bit about in a presentation about the different challenges that we have, just trying to get to these resources that was in the past has always been there. So now, in the modern day world that we live in, there's all different types of barriers to get people to, be able to get a grip on what they need to sustain themselves. But the whole mentality of the I culture and not the we culture, really confuses me, because, if we thought as we and as a community, then the resources seem to be a little bit more available for all of us to grasp onto, instead of every man for themselves. So I think the barrier of understanding that we all share Mother Earth together, and the resources that are here, in our culture was meant to be shared as well. So if you approach it with that thought, then I feel that you will have less barriers. But when not, then I feel the complications that we put on ourselves, we create our own barriers. And they're all different types of barriers that that can stop you from, from healthy soil, and clean water, and just access to land. So just some examples.
Right, exactly. Thank you so much.
If I could chime in just a little bit, because Cassius, as usual, is being doesn't play up his own role, but in 2018, Cassius hosted a Native American food sovereignty meeting in Rhode Island, where people came from all over North America, Native Americans, and really showed how strong the movement is, how committed people are to the movement. And it's beyond that, it's certainly beyond Native Americans. It's an international movement. There are people all over the world. And for me, one of the barriers is our fixation on economics. As you heard today, Cassius and Dawn are, many of their goals are way beyond economics. It's building communities, it's teaching youngsters, it's strengthening culture. So there are many, economics is not a major concern.
Great, thank you. We've got another question. This is from Robbie. He was very fascinated to hear about the 13 moons, including the strawberry moon. Can you speak more about the seasonal system? And also, like, how do you tie in, like, how does the artwork that you do, Dawn, tie into the seasons? Because that was such a beautiful part of the whole presentation that you both did for us today.
How does the artwork tie in? Do you want to answer that? I don't know.
I can try, yeah. So basically, again, when we give thanks and it's a celebration, you express that. You can express that in song and dance, in artwork, and if you look at some of the things that we use, or I should say how we identify art, because you can look at it in different ways. If we make a clay pot to cook with, and we put different designs on it, and as identification and different things, and we use that, well, somebody could come along and say, wow, that's a beautiful piece of artwork. But we look at it as, well, that's like me coming to your kitchen and say, well, what a beautiful pen. Can I take and hang this on the wall? Because it's just beautiful art, whoever made it. But if you ask indigenous people, well, what do you look at as art? They're going to give you a whole different thing. And it's like, again, it's about expression. It's the song. It's the memory. It's the spirit. It's the spirit of things, I guess, is what I'm looking for. And to be able to capture that is you'll see a lot in the indigenous community, is how they express, more of the artistic ability within themselves.
And we don't tend to refer to ourselves as artists or creating art. So I think that kind of always intimidates me. I never refer to myself as an artist, and I'm a creative soul, I guess. And a lot of things that we do because we need it in the moment. So like when I'm making something for my granddaughter and I know she likes strawberries, I'm gonna add strawberries to it because I know she likes those. And so sometimes our connections are not I don't want to say intentional, but they're not planned that way. It's just because it just becomes part of us. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's and like I said before, I do gravitate towards strawberries. So I do look to utilize them in my work, but
So, and to add to that, so the second part of that question, you look at a calendar and you can see, the calendar that you grew up with in the system is totally different than our calendar. So we could have two different, if we had to draw a calendar up, we would do two different calendars on the wall, and one calendar kind of reflects, yes, still timing, but it's the purpose of the timing is it's kind of led into, and that's why when we talk about the 13 moons, it's like saving up and saving up and saving up to give this thanks on this moon for the gifts that are so pronounced for that time of year, regardless if it's maple syrup or it's the green corn or it's the cranberry. and many more. It's again that time of year where you can actually share that with others by developing community events around that. And like Jan was mentioning about the food summit, it was kind of a similar situation where we wanted to show how important the resources were to us. But our first thought that went into that was giving thanks and giving celebration. And then we invited people from all over North America. We had people as far as Alaska, and they brought food with them. Maine brought some trout. Tucson, they brought beans. And we had moose cooking there, and we was cooking at open hearth style and stone boiling techniques. And then we went into fine dining as well, and show the different chefs of the day and how they include some of that traditional knowledge into their style of cooking. And the whole thing was set up so nicely. Is that, well, who are we going to invite? And that's when we decided to invite, people from these organizations that control policy and control, they have a lot of control. And so we brought, Department of Environmental Management, we brought NRCS, a USDA, Department of USDA, and farmer service agencies, and all these different folks that come down, and we actually broke bread and shared and showed them, our thoughts and our value towards these natural resources, so we could kind of start working towards helping each other understand why these resources are so important in different times of year.
That's perfect. I'm sorry.
I-
And yeah, Jan, go ahead.
If I could chime in just a second, again, to me, the fact that Dawn was kind of caught off balance by the question speaks wonders, because for her, it's not that art plays a role. I mean, everything that they're talking about with agricultural sovereignty food sovereignty it's all part of the way they live. It's what they do every day. It's how they think about the future generations. It's just all integrated, and it's not as though one thing has a role. It's everything is integrated. So the fact that she had difficulty in answering, I think, just shows how embedded it all is together.
Great, thank you, Jan. I'm afraid we've gone a little over time, so for anyone who's asked a question, we will send it along to Dawn and Cassius and Jan, and we'll follow up when I let everybody know when the video is ready for viewing on our YouTube channel. Thank you, Cassius, Dawn, Jan. Thanks to all of you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.